Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mudda. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Santosh Mishra and Siddhant Mishra. Mudda is a social issue platform where we aim at enabling people indulge in a fruitful discussion. Mudda provides a stage to raise your concerns in a segregated manner based on administrative blocks of India. Through Mudda, we also aid you to reach the concerned authorities and people with your ideas, your problems, and your suggestions. And that was a brief about Mudda. And I guess shortly, Siddhant and Santoshji would be joining us. And today we are going to discuss with them about the impact of digitalization. And here they have joined us. Hello, Siddhant. Hello, Santoshji. I hope you are doing great.
Hi Shreya. Yes, we are doing great.
Yeah, hello.
Uh, that's nice. So, giving a brief introduction about both of them, Dr. Santosh Mishra is a Florida based academician with specialization in bioinformatics, molecular biology, drug development, life science, cancer genomics, and clinical trials. He also has keen interest in neuroscience. And joining us today is a middle schooler Siddhant Mishra, who would be talking about his outlook towards the impact of digitalization in human brain. We have seen that there has been an advent of connectivity and there has been an enhanced connectivity.
इंट्रोड्यूसिंग मुद्दा ऐप इंडियाज सोशल इशू ऐप अपनी खुद की
अपनी खुद
कम्युनिटी
की
बनाएं
कम्युनिटी बनाएं
आसानी से अपने
आसानी
ग्रुप
से
का
अपने
पता
ग्रुप
लगाएं
का
जो
पता
आपके
लगाएं
क्षेत्र
जो
के
आपके
नाम पर
क्षेत्र
है
के नाम पर है
और अपने
और
मुद्दों
अपने मुद्दों
समस्याओं आदि को
समस्याओं
ग्रुप में
आदि को
डालना
ग्रुप
शुरू
में
करें
डालना शुरू करें
अपने इलाके के
अपने
अन्य
इलाके के
उपयोगकर्ताओं
अन्य
के साथ जुड़ें
उपयोगकर्ताओं के साथ जुड़े
Okay, I'm very sorry for that. So, before we move towards the discussion, would you like to say anything to the audience today, Dr. Santoshji?
Well, I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. And thank you for the opportunity that. And I would like to say that what you guys are doing is great. And and keep doing this great work using through Mudda.
Thank you very much, sir. Siddhant, would you like to say anything to the audience today?
This Mudda platform, it seems really cool, and I like the fact that you are doing these sorts of discussions and informing the general public about all sorts of different topics. I find it really interesting.
Thank you very much. That's really amazing, and we are very happy that you like the platform. So, we have seen that there has been the advent of internet, which leads to enhanced connectivity, and that happened since 1990s. But after 2000, there was an exponential increase in digitalization, and pandemic accelerated that progress to such a level that what we were anticipating would come true in 2050, we are seeing that today. So that's why we thought that since we are having Dr. Santoshji with us and Siddhant with us, so we thought why not discuss about the impact of digitalization on the most powerful machinery in the world, that is the human brain. And today, Dr. Santoshji, he'll be telling and talking about the neuroscientific approach and the neuroscientific aspects of this digitalization. And Siddhant would be talking about the general outlook. So, how do both of you see this entire situation that is right now? That is, how does digitalization affect the human brain broadly? What would be your outlooks on the two?
Sure, sure. Um, I would say, like, that despite these several positive aspects of this digital media, which include like our capability to effortlessly communicate with peers, like, anyone in the world, for example, at this stage, even like any distance doesn't matter at this point of time, and also, like, for example, using these tools, training tools for the students or even for elderly, so these are all very good aspect of digitalization. But that digitalization also causes this detrimental effect on our brains and our mind, for example. And there are neurological consequences that has been reported, actually related to internet gaming, like, for example, addiction, aggression, language development, processing of our emotions, and cognition, which is an important part of our day-to-day life, actually. So there are already mounting scientific evidence that suggests that digitalization is affecting the human brain. And just take an example. For example, um, uh, um, uh, back in time, when I was growing up, we didn't have mobile. We used to remember tons of things just in our brain. We don't have to depend on, like, these digital sources. Like, just take an example of remembering phone numbers. We used to store like 25, 30, or 50 numbers just in our brain, and somebody asked us and we just tell them. So we were using the part of the brain at the beginning. Looking at the map, for example, we don't have to depend upon the GPS nowadays. If the GPS does not work, we are done. We don't remember, oh, we have to go. We are not kind of using our brain to utilize as maps, the printed maps, to actually to read those maps and actually go to certain destination, for example. So these are actually impacting our brain. Let's say, I'm giving you one scientific study that was done recently, where what they did is they actually looked at the linear text versus the text on the paper that we used to do in the, like, in the past. For example, when I was growing up, we were reading books, for example. So those linear text on the paper versus computer screen nowadays, because most of the things now actually change, like all the, like, text, videos, pictures change into the digital form. So we are kind of used to of reading everything on the computer. So this study has been done recently, and there is a, like, scientific correlation for that. And what they did is they actually took 72 10th graders from different primary school in Europe, in Norway. And what they did is basically they asked these students, so they randomized these students, for example, in different groups, and they asked, like, simply to read something on the computer, and to read something on the, for example, on the printed page, for, okay. And then what they did is they evaluated the reading comprehension, like, the word reading, vocabulary, all those kind of thing. And what was the major finding that shows from this study is that the kid who read these things on the printed versus the one that reading on the computer screen, there was a significant difference in the reading comprehension. So the kids who are actually reading on the book, they actually have better comprehension than the one that are actually reading on the computer screen. So now, if we talk about brain, our brain is complex. There is not one part in the brain. There are many different parts, and there are a lot of, like, scientific work has been done where we actually figured that out. These different parts of the brain, they interact with each other. Okay, so for example, now let's say if we are losing like those kind of interaction in the brain, so this is very important for us to, for example, uh, to uh, to use go back to our, like, the conventional, like, the system where we do things like reading, like playing, like, playing games, for example. Nowadays the kids are actually more glued to the, like, computer or laptop, or like, these iPads, those kind of thing, or smartphones. So that actually affecting our brain, the way it processes, the way it actually remember things. Then other thing that I said, like, the the depression, nowadays depression is a huge issue, for example. And why? And now if you just think about depression, in the past, we used to study, we used to go to outside, play, do physical work. So what happens in the night? We sleeps well. you know so one if you sleep well, what happens, that your brain is next day it's fresh, all that kind of thing. So sleep can affect our life in many different ways, and there are a lot of scientific work done on that. So sleep can affect depression, like, like it can cause, like, well, I would say there is a causal relationship, but there is an association between sleep and the depression, sleep and the obesity, sleep, and just Google it, you will find so many work already has been done that shows if you sleep less, you have an issue, like cardiovascular, depression, obesity, that, as I said already. So I think it's, in a nutshell, what I would say, that if we are constantly assaulting, I would say, I would use this word assaulting, because we are doing that. We are assaulting our brain by using these backlight, like, let's screen, like, the phone, or the computer screens and those kind of things. And if we do that, we may not develop our brain like the way our, like, parents, or like if you go back in time, people have done it. So I think, like, it's very important to use this digital media in more cautious way than just going on to use that. So this is like, I just told you about the big picture of this, how this can affect the digitalization on the impact of human brain.
Thank you very much, sir. And I also believe the same thing. Though I have also been reading like through PDFs only for more than like 1 year, but still I feel books are totally irreplaceable. I mean, I've never felt the same thing reading PDF. Unless and until you scribble on the book, you don't understand. That's what I feel. And now I would love to know what is Siddhant's opinion about it.
Well, I believe that yes, there are some disadvantages of so much digitalization. There's way too much. People are staring at screens for far too long. It's hurting their eyes, it's hurting their brain. But in my opinion, there are more advantages of digitalization. For example, especially in the past 2 years where it's been difficult to meet up in person, it has been a lifesaver. Like for people who go to school, we wouldn't have been able to go to school for 2 years, and that's 2 years of education which we would have lost. And then for people who work from home, that it would hurt the economy, it would hurt everything. Of course, that doesn't mean that you can stare at a screen all day and say that you're doing work. There has to be like a line. You need to know where to draw the line between like actually being productive and hurting your brain.
That's an amazing thought, and I totally agree on this as well. That drawing that particular line, that very narrow line, is really important. And as Santosh ji said, that we there was a time when when our ancestors rather, they really remembered phone numbers, and even our parents, they remembered phone numbers. But human brain is a very plastic thing, and as Santosh ji said, that the youth is the most affected by anything. So I would like to ask both of you, like, earlier internet started as a medium to ease our efforts or ease our concerns or ease our problems, but now it has become a backbone for absolutely everything. As Siddhant mentioned, we would have come to an abrupt stop. So how do you see this thing, like, what do you exactly see this development going towards?
Yeah. So again, it is arguably, like, I would say, it's a key driver in achieving our sustainable future for all. The internet. So I'm not against it. I support this development. However, digitalization is not a single entity, I would say, that actually, or technology, that rather it is like highly interconnected in itself. Okay. So for example, it represents the convergence as well as the interaction, as I said, like, like we talk about brain, we talk about, again, if you talk about just digitalization, like, they're interconnected with many fields, such as, for example, like computer science, engineering, informatics, and mathematics, biotechnology, take it, nanotechnology, manufacturing. So it's really a backbone. Like, we connect, we and then we converge on that. So to reap, I would say, in short, to reap the potential benefit of digitalization for sustainable development, it will require continued development across all these domains, okay, as well as, for example, like discipline like social science, for example, is foremost among them. uh, Currently, digital innovation are mainly driven by, for example, like private and R&D investment, correct? So to develop like social perspective on this sustainable future, I think public R&D investment are instrumental in this. So we need to actually look at that, and I think that's basically will be the game changing event. So this is what I would say, that, like, that how this digitalization has this sustainable, like, thing.
Sure, sir. And Siddhant, what's your view?
So, yeah, as you said, it was first made to make things easier, but at this point, it basically solves all of our problems. So, for example, if in some way all the internet or anything in all technology just stopped working, a lot of people wouldn't manage to like survive. They rely so heavily on these devices that they don't really know how to work without them. So I feel like it's good to have this. We should have it, and it is a helpful resource, but we shouldn't make it our lifeline. We should rely on ourselves as well. We should be like independent.
Yeah, definitely. That thing is again very important. And again, moving on, we have always been a very curious creature, or probably the most curious creature on this planet is the human being. And we also see that we have always been very curious to know about everything that's new, and we are always very willing to take risks and to learn new things and to explore new things and discover new things. But now with the advent of internet, this very beautiful thing has taken over, that is FOMO. We are all having FOMO, be it me, be it you, or be it the audience. Each one of us is having FOMO today, the fear of missing out. So how do you see this, Dr.
Yeah.
Santoshi?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think, as you said, the fear of missing out makes you really feel bad, and that hinders your abilities, for example, to focus on important goals. Okay, so, like, it is like a negative feeling, you get when you see that your colleagues are enjoying happy hours, or, like when I was growing up back in time, and this is not new. This is actually back in time there. So I can give you my example. When I used to have an exam, and my siblings or my neighbor kids, they are actually playing at that time, because we have these different exam times. So I was thinking at that time, hey, come on, this guy is playing, and I have to read. So it was hard beyond my comprehension, that that person is actually playing, but I am actually reading. So that fear of missing that playing time was the problematic. Okay, so, but take it the other way around. So, for example, like the same thing, if somebody is doing, like, collecting garbage, for example, and if I see that person, like, that person is collecting garbage, and I'm not invited to collect that garbage, for example, that would not affect me, so I'm not missing out. So what I'm actually trying to bring it here is the goal, that I think. So there is in psychology, there is a term called cybernetic process model, that you have to set your goals, and then you have to evaluate your situation. And what happens when you set your goal and when you evaluate your situation, if both matches, then you are happy. If they don't match, that is the time when you feel bad about it, correct? so
Yeah,
what
I guess.
so what you need to do is basically is you need to set your goal. You need to set your goal based on your current situation, evaluating your current situation. And this, as a each individual different in doing that, but we need to remind, and again, as I said, we need to remind this from the very beginning. when when especially now when, when even before these kids not started, um pardon me, I'm saying these kids, but I meant like the kids, those are actually, they even haven't actually grown up to start, making the sentence, but now they get the phone in their hand, they start making using of those phones. So, I mean, setting your goals, evaluating your situation, and then you basically can get overcome these kind of FOMO feeling, and I can go more and more on this. Now, how would you set your goal, for example? So, like, as a like, if I look at my current situation, so my goal right now, like, big picture, if I look at it, my goal should be at this point is work, and then some leisure time, correct? Because I can't be doing all the time work. So that work and leisure is that, these are my two important goals, correct? So that's, I set my goal that I have to do work and do, and then, and sometime I have to take off. Then, now this is important here, because if you set your goal, but then if you are tempted by these external goals that other people are doing, this is where you loses the balance. And as Siddhant said, that for everything we need to set a line of balance, that, and if we actually go here or there, this is where we actually loses that balance. Okay, so set your goal, don't get tempted by these external things at that point of time, and then beware of looking of others for your goals, that what they are saying in terms of, that, hey, because we set our goals, but then if somebody says, hey, well, this goal is not happy, this goal is not good, so you start thinking, your brain start thinking that why this person said. So this is where you have to think about, when you are setting up that goal, that you are happy with it, because eventually that everything that you have to deal with is that your brain and your body is actually dealing with it. It doesn't matter, the like the external circumstances can actually impact that. It can make it worse, that depending upon, you have to put a filter on yourself. Like, if you put that filter, hey, like, this is my goal, and these are the things that are coming on, but this is actually affecting my goals in a negative way, I should not be taking that. If it is affecting that in a positive way, I should be taking that recommendation. So that's an important thing. So setting up your goal. The second thing I would say, getting your evaluation. And as I already said, don't get overvalue others, because now with the social media, this is what exactly happening right now, that we look at the social media and we look at some picture, for example, somebody posted that, hey, I am actually in Spain, actually enjoying this on a nice beach, and that is giving us a signal. But our brain processes, and the picture that they posted it, these actually are positive, they only put the positive part of it. They did not show the negative part of this, or the, like, how that person reaches the Spain, for example, to do that, but your brain is actually taking that picture and evaluating that. So, so we have to stop that over evaluation, or under evaluation ourselves, because, hey, that person is in the Spain, I am actually sitting, what I'm doing here, actually I should be also be at the Spain. But if you set your goals in the beginning, that will help you, that, hey, this is not my goal, I can't be doing this is probably my leisure time, that maybe I can do it when I'm actually retired, for example. I can go to the beaches, I can do whatever I want at that point of time. So I think that is the second thing, that we have to evaluate our current situation, where I am. So for students, for example, kids, those who are actually growing up, for them, that I would say, there is, as a parents, which I tell my kids, hey, you have to set up, you have two goals right now. One is you have your academic goals, that you have to study. The other is, like, and then you have to find a physical, the time that you go out, play with your friend, develop your social networking. So these are the two things that you have to do it. So now, based on your current evaluation, okay, well, if you have exam, then you have to set your goals. Okay, well, my exams are coming, so I can set this goal, for later on. So that usually helps. Then the third thing is, I would say, getting the behavior right. So, like, the tough. This is really tough. How can we actually set our behavior right? Correct. It's very hard. It's very hard to do that. And going back to the, this cybernetic process model, where I said setting your goals, where you basically, and the evaluation, and then third, where the behavior right. So this is where your current experience truly doesn't matches with your goal, then that is what happening, correct? So for example, that if you see some, that somebody is playing, I'm just giving example of, a kid who sees other person playing, and then the parents told him to, hey, you have to study right now. And now he said, okay, well, this guy is playing, but I am studying. And he gets, like, angry about the fact that I have to read, for example. So now, I mean, that's too early to actually control. Even like, even for elderly also, this is difficult, as I said, like to make that thing possible, to make that behavior right. But if we see, hey, this is my goal, and this goal is affected by this behavior, because I'm getting more angry, because if I see that the person is playing, that affects my study, I'll change the situation, I'll change my environment, for example. I stop. And this is what we used to do in the past. So I remember that, when I see my other neighbor, they are playing, their exams are over, I try not to talk about them, that what are they doing or what they are actually studying at that time, or they are playing that time. So I try to put myself in a solo zone where I say, okay, well, I am the only person at this point of time, and my goal is to finish my exam, not to actually go and actually play.
Like,
So I think that's, then I think, if, and again, as I said, this is very hard thing to do. So if you still have that issues, there are different ways to actually do with it. There are good discoveries has been done, suggested, that you go for a walk, you do like some stress relieving thing that actually de-stress yourself. So go for, if whatever your hobby is, do those kind of thing, time wise. So I think in short, I would say, sorry, I took too long to actually explain this, but in short, I would say, if we have to overcome this FOMO, we have to set our goal right, establish the clear personal goals based on our own underlying interests, for example, okay, that values and the basic psychological needs that actually in advance, for example. So we have to tell this to the kids or to ourselves, that, hey, this is my goal, next year I will be busy, so if I have to do something, I can do it now. So your goal is still there, you can change your time based on setting on that goal. So never change your goal, keep your goal based on your current situation, for example. And as I already said, that current situation, don't overvalue others or undervalue yourself. And then the last thing that I said, the behavior right, assess what, if anything, is your emotion is telling you. If your emotion is telling you that it is making you mad or angry about this, try to change that. Okay, so that's is my take on that.
I think that's absolutely very eloquent explanation, sir. And what I have gotten from that is that currently, due to social media, we see the bright side of everything, but somewhere we always miss the struggle that should actually be shown to people. And I also feel that somewhere our goals, they are quite like a spider web, and we are held captive over there, and we are not able to really clear our view, we are not able to set our goals. Probably that's the reason that we are not able to really reach to something, and we are always in this confusion state, or in a very confused or uncertain situation. And I think we owe somewhere that thing to social media. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I think, the social media is really, as I said, it actually, over most of the time overdo things. So I think we have to stop that, we have to stop that overdo. So I think social media is good. I mean, it's good in a sense that, again, we have to draw a line, we have to make a balance, that what is good for ourselves. So what if we just think about, at this point, if we are, I mean, you can say this is mean, but if eventually we have to think about first ourselves, and then you think about, the society, and if you think about yourself. And this reminds me of my younger brother saying long time back, that we always have to think first, and then you think about the society. So again, if you set up your goal, eventually you help in developing the society. So you can use that social media, you can use social media to look at what things that actually help you to get your goals right, to put you to put it in your good situation. So look at the positive side of it, and try to, balance. So again, this brain is very important. This is why I actually stress on that as a parents, or as a, if we are guiding somebody, tell them in the beginning, because this first 25 years of their, from the person is born, that's the crucial period, because this is the time when maximum growth is happening in the brain. After that, this is done. Our brain don't change a lot. So it takes some time, it changes, but it takes a very long time to actually do that. So if we do this at the very young stage, if we tell the kids, hey, yes, this is good. Communication, I think nowadays we are all hooked to the social media. This is the only interface that we actually communicate. And again, going back to the brain, for example, because we are totally dependent upon the text that is on the social media, and we associate that text with our brain, and we are not using the other part of the brain that is also very important. So if you don't use that other part of the brain, you are basically killing your brain of not developing that. And if you don't do that, it will be a problem after 25 years, when you are actually in a phase where you start new a job, where you start talking to people, and there you don't have a social media actually, correct? So you have not developed that skill set to actually work on that. So I think it's very important. So bottom line is that social media is important, but like balance, drawing a balance line, nothing in exaggeration, nothing or nothing in less is actually important.
I guess, yeah. So I guess what is important even today is that we have to clear the clutter absolutely everywhere.
Correct.
And moving on from this, now I would love to know about Siddhant's opinion on both these things, FOMO as well as the social media.
Well, in terms of FOMO, Dr. Mishra basically just took the words out of my mouth. I would say, yeah, because his example of how you won't be missing out if somebody is picking up trash because you don't think that that's something which you really want to do, right? So if you set your goals like in the before, then you think that okay, well this is more important, so I'm not missing out on anything. And in the terms of social media, I would say that social media can be good and bad. Like people can overuse it, get obsessed with it, or like they're always wanting to have more likes or followers or whatever. And because of that, that also adds up to FOMO because you want more people to like, you want to fit in with the rest of the people. And but there are like a lot of disadvantages. There are things like with FOMO, there comes like you want to be with other people, so you do what they do, and that's basically how trends start. And trends can be good and bad at the same time. So like there's actually a trend going on right now where you steal basically and record yourself stealing. So in that case, social media is bad and it's just another part of FOMO. So like as you said, like the sort of spider web sort of thing. You don't want to go on the wrong strand of the spider web.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so is that all, Siddhant?
Yeah, I'd say that's all.
Uh, okay. So you talked about trends and followers and likes. So what I see it as, and what I usually say to other people whenever I talk about this, I always say that instead of any quality content, आजकल तो यहाँ पर सिर्फ और सिर्फ followers और likes की होड़ है. मतलब there's a sort of race about it, about the followers and likes, who gets more likes and who gets more acceptance in the society. So somewhere, what I feel is that due to social media, we're also seeing this situation wherein people are not really able to, um, you know, analyze themselves, as Dr. Santosh already said about it. And also, I feel that there is a lot of uncertainty among people, especially the youth, due to social media. And as Santoshi already said, that we must clear the clutter for this. And moving ahead, what I really feel is that um, due to social media and due to this entire virtual world, people have become a bit more frank because they have become more fearless and they are able to express themselves more confidently without any particular social constraints and any taboos that would restrict them. And they also feel that somewhere it is important, and it has become easier to quit that thing anytime they want. Like, we're having digital detox, obviously, but also if there's anything going wrong, you can anytime quit that world. And somewhere I think people are trying to imitate that in real life also, in terms of suicides. Do you agree to that, or what is your opinion about it?
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Like, that this is what exactly happening right now, because your friends are now uh, the digital friend, I would call them. They are no real friends. Like, these are digital friends, because you make them through Facebook or whatever, like these social medias are, you know so
Probably
you
never
get,
meet them as well.
yeah, so you get all this information, you get all this invitation, like, making friends. So it's on your fingertips. You click it, you got 100 friends, 1,000 friends, 3,000 friends, and then you start comparing. Correct, that, hey, this guy has 10, like, that many friends, I have less. So this is basically, again, affecting our brain, because we are so dependent on the digital things. And as you said, that is like, uh, this virtual media provides people a stage to be, like, easily getting it out, like, so we basically, if we don't like something, we block that person, or we say, okay, well, you are not my good friend. Now what happens is that you actually are training on, this is only one part of your brain that is working, correct? Because you are escaping away, you are running away from the fact, because it's easy for you. And now you are not training your brain in the very beginning, as I said before, that our brain is plastic. More we expose to different circumstances, different things, it will be, those connections will be made strongly, and we will have a position where we can actually deal with it in a better way than just, like, just not running away from that. And I give you an example of this, for example, of this. So so let's say, like, when you see something or read something from your friend, and you don't like it, you exit that group, or you make that friend not from your, unless that friend from your friend list. So you don't learn. We are losing the communication thing, correct? Because there is no
Absolutely.
communication here. In the past, what happens, we I mean, again, we do this kind of thing before, but what happened, we basically exposed to the same person next day. So where, like, so our brain learns slowly that, hey, this is not bad, we are getting other cues also. Because in digital media, as I said, we are reading, so there is only one part of the brain that we are actually kind of working. The other part, like, the visual effect, for example, is not working. We don't see how that person is. So, like, some words that can have a very negative effect on our brain when we read it. But the same word, if that person, if you talk in a group, in person, it would not affect your brain that much. So the intensity, so when you read, that intensity is different from when you talk. So there are different cues, different things that your brain are actually processing at that point. So you are allowing your brain to actually work on different aspects. So again, as I said, like, one of that is communication, visual cues, those kind of thing. And it's very important that we should do this. We should make this a habit that the kids are learning. Kids are doing by going more, not only just going to the digital media, or making friends there, but actually, we should, encourage this kind of, like, the thing that we actually was doing in the past, where we allow kids to go, like, 1 hour, just go outside, play, explore nature, those kind of thing. So I would say, like, I think, again, that way we will train our brain in much better way, and we will be able to handle things um, uh, more intelligently than doing something like this, like, where the easiest step. And again, as I said, our brain is tend to, like, is to do easy things, what is easy. But in long term, that easy is not good. So so that is a very important actual factor here, that we should actually train our brain from the very beginning, that we should talk, we should communicate. And that's, you probably heard this thing, everyone say, hey, If something goes bad, you have to communicate, because I think communication is the best thing to resolve that issue. With digital media, we are not doing it. There is no communication. So that is the big negative factor here.
Absolutely. I guess that now this has really taken over, and digitalization is really taking over in terms of miscommunication and lack of communication. And I think we owe this to the fact that we have moved from an era of Enid Blyton's adventures to Steve Jobs' digital gadgets and all. And what is your opinion about it, Siddhant?
For the most part, I would agree. I believe that, like, with social media, you can talk to basically anybody on the internet. And if you mess up, if you say something wrong, you can just delete the message. And if things get worse, you just delete your account. It's that simple. And then you get away from all your troubles. People believe they can do this in real life. They can just say whatever they want and do whatever they want, which is harming, like, communities in general. Like, a community, we could say, for example, the school, kids will just believe that they can say or do whatever they want, believing that there's no repercussions. But in real life, that's different. And then what you were saying about people taking their lives, that's basically the in real life equivalent of deleting your account to just get rid of all of your troubles. They believe that it gets rid of the pain, but it only passes the pain to somebody else.
Yeah, I guess that's again correct. And that's totally something that is really to the point. And again, moving ahead, I think it's important that we also talk about ADHD when we're talking about students, because I guess ADHD is affecting absolutely everybody from all the age groups. Am I correct, Dr. Santosh?
So yes, I think this is the incidence of ADHD has increased, and it will increase even. It will go to the worst actually side. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
And so, how do you exactly see this thing? Like, how do you see a way out of this problem, ADHD? Because at least in India, we usually see people talking that, like, my child or my brother or my relative, that particular person is not able to concentrate for 15 minutes properly. So, how do you exactly see a way coming out of that?
Yeah, so I think ADHD, as you said, like it makes it difficult for a person to pay attention. That's the major like part of the ADHD is like or in other words, you can say that easily get distracted, or not concentrating on something that is very important. Um, and they loses their impulsive behavior, to control that impulsive behavior. So that's the attached to it. So um, but I would like to say here that digital media is not the only one that would say that is involved in causation of the ADHD. It can actually exaggerate or like make the things worse. You know, because if you, I'll just go very briefly the science behind it. So um, behind this, there are various factors that can play a role in ADHD, which includes, like, for example, like genes. So genes is very important. So again, like that run in families. So we cannot actually really blame the digital media there. So something in the family that is important, like the gene that I said, chemicals in the brain. And again, that the messages, the digital media, the different things that give us the messages that can change our brain chemicals in people with ADHD. Correct. So that can be like, if it goes out of balance, it's a problem. So that's another factor that cause ADHD. Then there the several other factors like nutrition, smoking, infections, drinking, and like substance abuse during pregnancy that can impact the infant, for example. Those, and then like different chemicals that can affect leads to ADHD, and then brain injury or brain repair. So if something we had during like our growing up, and which we think, hey, that's minor, but that eventually can affect the brain later on, and that can affect the ADHD. And then the last thing that I would say and put emphasis on that, the brain changes. That the areas of the brain that control these attentions, they are less active in children with ADHD. Correct. So now if you look at that, and if you think that in terms of, like, that if, let's say, that if we don't use our brain, if we don't make these brain um, uh, active, or some say regulating these different emotions, we would basically, what we do is we may affect one positively, but we are maybe affecting the other, this the area of the region that is involved in ADHD. So I think that's again very important. So I'll just give you an example of, like, a study that has been done in US, where, like, they like use the data from 2,500 high school students in Los Angeles, in West Coast. And this is an NIH based study. This is a National Institutes of Health, one of the biggest funding agency in US. And so what they did is they basically found that those who consume these most digital media, they were most likely to develop these kind of ADHD symptoms, for example. So this study represents basically a starting point, but there are potential caveats to this study, because, as I said, these are all uh, association, correct? We don't know the causation, if that digital media is causing that effect. We still have to do this kind of study to actually find out. We still have to understand our brain, how they actually control these different kind of emotion. And people are doing it, scientists are actually working on it to understand the brain, their interaction in different areas of the brain, like, during bad versus good emotions, those kind of things that can eventually affect, for example, the ADHD. So, and there is another recent study where basically NIH is actually funded of a 10-year study, and the data is almost, like, available right now, that is called the, like, ABCD. So don't get me wrong, this is not anybody can dance. This is about adolescent brain cognitive development project that is funded by NIH. And this is a 10-year study where basically scientists are looking at the effect of drugs, effect of, like, the other things that can actually affect ADHD. So, again, in short, I would say that we will learn more. We are looking forward to these research, and we'll see, like, how, like, if we can find out the interactions, the mechanisms, then maybe we can develop some therapy regarding this. But as I said, that this problem is going to be increasing in the future. It's not gonna go less. It will go more to the worst.
Yeah, I guess the trend is already increasing and remarkably increasing, and actually, it is increasing manifold. And
Right.
yeah, and I guess we still have a long way to go in this field. And now I would like to know Siddhant's view about it.
Well, ADHD, it's in the gist of ADHD is that you get distracted easily, correct?
Absolutely
So
correct.
basically, if you're being distracted easily, I feel like the device is basically another thing to distract you with. Without the device, you'll find something else to be distracted with. Like, if I am to do my work on a table, I'll start messing with my pencil or something, right? So I feel like devices, it's just another cause. Well, not cause. It's just another thing which accelerates it. It's not like a cause. It's yeah.
So it's a medium. It's not a medium. Also, actually, it's not a cause, but it's simply another thing that's distracting us, right? A replacement.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Now, first, I would toss this question to Siddhant. Siddhant, do you play video games?
Yes, I do.
So you must be enjoying that field and that arena that you are in when you play video games.
Yes.
I'll
You
just quickly add to this, share. There 9 out of 10 children play video game. Now you can look at the number. So Siddhant is
absolutely.
among that 9 children who plays video game, I guess.
So, what sort of a video games do you usually play?
I normally play games where you like build things. Yeah, like you basically like build countries or not countries, but like empires, and you like strengthen your army and things like that.
So you try to portray it in a more constructive way, but still you might be aware that there are a lot of fights over there in video games usually. So there have been a lot of studies, and it has been found that video games are one of the leading causes of aggression and some very heinous crimes. Do you agree with that?
Uh, no, I disagree. Because the thing is, video games, it's a very vast topic. You can't just say, oh, he plays this game, so he must be a violent person. There's like a huge difference. There's games where you can just race cars. There are games where you like build empires. There are other games where the whole point is to kill people, right? So it
Yeah,
depends on the game. What?
yeah, I agree with you over here.
So it depends on the game you play, but also how you play it. Because there was a couple months ago there was an event where the police was with a shootout with this child, and after he was detained by the police, he said that it reminded him of his favorite video game. The thing is, just because you play video games, it doesn't give you an excuse to be a violent person. But that doesn't mean that if you play video games, you have to be a violent person. It's how you are in real life. If you're a violent person, you're gonna be violent. That's pretty much it. Like if I were to play some shooting game, but I'm not a violent person, let's say, I'll be like, okay, yeah, I shot him, but that's it. I'm not gonna go and say, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill you or something like that. Video games are a cause of violence, but it's only because violent people play video games.
I think that's a really smart and sensible answer, and I really appreciate that perspective and that point of view, Siddhant. And Dr. Santosh, would you like to add something over here? And what is your opinion about aggression and video games?
Yeah. So I think as Siddhant said, I think depending upon what kind of game you are playing, that's important. And certainly, violent video games are of concern to many experts. A recent study where, they did with this 45 adolescents playing violent video games, and only for very small period of time, like just 30 minutes, and immediately that amount of time can lower the activity in the different part of the brain, especially the prefrontal area, the area of the brain that is actually involved in controlling emotions, for example. you know so um again, what kind of games? I mean, if you just go with this game is a quick access to some kind of achievement, correct? Gratification,
Absolutely.
quick gratification, that's what they get it. So I think, and that gratification is unpredictable in that game. So not only the video games, probably if you go to Las Vegas, you play these machine where there are games. Again, those are unpredictable. That's how they want to make money, because they feel, okay, well, at some point of time I will break this, I will score high, for example, in the video game, or in those kind of the game example I said, Las Vegas, where people play for money. They say, okay, well, I break it at some point, I'll maybe a winner. So I think what you are doing, if we look at the science behind it, is the science behind is the release of dopamine. So the dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that actually helps in rewarding, gives a reward feeling, that you achieved something, and it produces in such a huge manner that it has effect on one part of the brain, but it has a negative effect on the other part of the brain. So as I said, if shut down that the other part of the brain that is involved in, let's say, controlling the emotions. And this is what the linkage here. So if you fail to regulate your emotion of anger by doing something at the brain level, it may impact that, correct? And that's basically the relationship over here, the video game versus, like, what kind of video game the kids are playing. And what I mean, yes, there is, there is this central dogma is that if you play video games, your motor skills are better. So you develop your motor skills. But remember, I just mentioned that before. You are developing only one kind of relationship with the brain. That is your, your visual, because you are actually looking at those visual things, and then you're trying to do with your, motor skills to actually prevent that, let's say, any kind of like car race, or those kind of violent video games. So you are only developing that part of those connections, but then you are shutting down the other part. So it's very important that, again, we have to draw a line to make this balance. So let them, kids, they can play some game, but again, we have to say that certain time is good. that they should play this, maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes. So, like, as I said, for the FOMO, setting a right goal, you know and the game is actually this nowadays video game, especially with COVID now, because we are not going outside, we are not able to play with the other kids. So we are now getting used to this more. And so impact of this we'll see in 20 years from now, because the brain changes in the brain is not instantaneous. I told you some example of this chemical that is instantaneous, but with long term happening this during early on at the age, it will actually change the brain dramatically. We will basically rewire the whole brain differently if we actually grew to this at this early. Okay, so I think that's the important. That's what we basically have to to like tell the kids.
Yeah, I think that was really informative, Dr. Santosh. And you also mentioned that somewhere we are really getting deprived of that emotional thing that is very essential to exist in a society through video games. So, do you agree, Siddhant? Unless and until that line is set, that emotional quotient is really getting lowered among the youth.
I disagree again. Maybe I might sound a bit biased, but I disagree because basically what you're saying is that like your emotional intelligence, let's say, it's being lowered, right? Like you're saying you're like if you lose a video game, right? Then you'll get really you'll get like really angry and you'll start like getting enraged, right? But the thing is, it's just this connotation around video games. There are other things which people play which makes them angry. Have you seen like a younger child getting mad after he loses a sport? But nobody says anything about sports because it's healthy for you. Like you're getting exercise in and it like increases your metabolism metabolism. Sorry. Uh and so there it's just a connotation around video games. There's like a big cloud of bias towards them just because people believe that anything bad it's caused by video games. I'd say that yes, some people play too many video games or like they play for too long and there's again, I'm going to go back to the line. You need to know when to draw a line. But that doesn't exactly mean that everything about video games are bad.
Yeah, we agree with that. But when we talk about emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, we also include this thing that is, you're able to hold your emotions and you're able to express it in the appropriate manner. And I think that's something which we learn gradually with time. As a kid, you are always having that low emotional quotient and you're always that person who throws tantrums. Do I agree? Do you agree with that? Dr. Siddhant, Dr. Santosh and Siddhant, I'm so sorry.
No worries, Shreya. I think the instant gratification, that is something that the video games gives the kids, and they feel they develop that as an habit, that very instant gratification, that getting instant result, getting instant doing things, and then if they don't get that, they get angry, they cannot control the emotions. There is a linkage somewhere, we still don't know at the brain level where are those linkage, where how those are connected. I wish we could, I mean, eventually we will, but I think this should be important, especially early on, as I said, like during these first 25 or 30 years of their development, that 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 we should expose our brain to not only just one thing, to many different things, so that our brain will develop those connections early on, and then we will have an opportunity later on in our life that where we can actually use those experiences based connections in the brain to find out something that is good in terms of, as I said, setting our goals, or reaching our goals, for example, and so yeah, that's my view on that.
And Siddhant, what would be your view?
I would agree with your point that the younger you are like less emotionally resistant. And so my example, you have proved it invalid, but then it's a thing of maturity. The older you get, I don't exactly see like people who are, let's say, 20 years old playing video games and start screaming and crying after they've lost a game, right?
Exactly, and that's annoying, I guess. I hope you agree with me over here.
So like you see more younger people play video games, so it shows how like they're less emotionally resistant. But it's the same thing with sports. It's just that older people also play sports. So that there's like that difference. Again, with maturity and like the bias cloud.
Okay, fine. But whatever it is, your your views seriously seem to be like way beyond your age somewhere, I guess. And they're really very, insightful. And moving on to the last thing that I really want to talk to you about. Nowadays, there is this another trending thing that is digital detox. So, what would be your quick way or your long term view or your long term way to this digital detox? Dr. Santosh, I think we'll begin with you.
So again, I think the digital detox is a very trendy term right now. We all say that, like, when we want to. This is another way of things that you said before. Where that's again my view, that when we make friends, and if we don't like the comments, we don't like things. What we do is we basically block that person, or we do that. Right now, this is a good way of keeping yourselves away from the digital media, for example, and using that time. I mean, some people take that in a different ways. Sometimes you are really busy, you want to do something, and because we know that, hey, that because of all these digital things, that I'm so distracted. So for example, like, the digital detox have different ways to do it. So for example, when I am doing something very important, I have one part of my life is writing grants, for example, where I have to write these things, and I need a real focus actually during that time. So what I do is I disconnect myself from the internet. So I'm disconnect. Basically, this is like, I don't know if I'm going to the point there, like, the digital detoxification, but it's the same way, like, that you kind of detach from something where you are actually focus on something that is very important. That is that, as I said, that you set for your goal, for example. And I think that is what we are doing with this digital detoxification. And I guess this is more for the adults and the elderly, but not for the youngs. I have not seen this digital detox with the kids, that if they are doing this, and I think this is I encourage this, that the parents, that they should actually tell the kids that, hey, okay, well, now you spend a lot of time, let's say, the summer, all of your summer, you spend time on digital things. Now this is the time, another few months, that you have to detox, or you have to use digital media off, to like, to get these, like, again, the chemicals, for example, that these stimulants, these digital things are also emitting lights and other things that can affect our brain. So that's somehow, like, if I correlate that with the detoxification, is something that is actually, we are letting our brains to not release those chemicals, for example, in that term, let me put it that way. That might, I mean, we don't have a study done, I mean, at least to my knowledge, but I'm sure this will come up, like, how these digital things can actually impact our brain, for example, releasing chemicals that I told you, those neurotransmitter can be bad, can be good, depending upon the situation. So if we are not using those digital media, we might, like, affect those releases at lower level, and that might detox our brain, for example, to a certain level. So that's basically my take on that.
Yeah, definitely, Dr. Santosh. And I think that digital detox is a very frequent thing for you, by seeing that stack of papers beside you. And what would be your take on this, Siddhant?
Well, as Dr. Mishra said about the that like younger students don't really do this sort of, or younger people don't really do this digital detox sort of thing. I guess in a way that's true, but you also have to realize like let's just say let's change the word to like relaxing, right? Relaxing using some sort of digital device, right? In which
Uh,
case, like when you come back from school and you've done all your homework, you go outside, you play, and then you come inside and you play video games or you check social media or you do whatever you do to relax. So in that case, I feel like it's a good thing, but you need to know when to do it because some people they'll decide, okay, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna do my work, and I'm gonna do video games, I'm gonna play outside, then I'll do my homework, and that's not good because then you're like up at night and you don't get your sleep and then the next day you're even like less relaxed than you wanted to be just because you didn't know when to do it. So I'm going to go back again to the line, to drawing the line. You have to know where to draw the line. Again, it's just when you have to relax and when's the time for work. That's a big thing.
okay, so that was again like a very insightful thing that you said. And today, I guess my network is really, really poor. But am I audible to you?
Yes.
Okay, so moving on to the final and conclusive question to both of you. Dr. Santosh, what would be the take home message that you would like to give to the audience today?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shreya. And what I would say in brief is that, like as I said before, and I said it multiple times, that the children's early experiences that shape who they are and that affect lifelong health and learning for them. So, guiding them, telling them their pros and cons of anything, like use, I mean, we are talking about this digital media, so I would focus on that and I would stress on that telling them that excessive use of digital media is not good, and doing thing as Siddhant said, draw a line, so doing things in moderation is a way to go. What I would like to add here is that we should actually the like at the government level, that what need to be done, that we should introduce a digital education coursework early on, at the school level or at the college level, where kids are, can learn the pros and cons, use of this, what to use, when to use, how to use, where to stop, all that kind of thing, just going back in time, that there was no sex education in India, for example, but that was introduced. So this is the same thing that we need to do it. So instead of doing it like 20 years from now, we should do it now, not waiting too long, because again, as I said, this is not going to stop. This is, as I said, digitalization is good, and so if we say this is good, so we will definitely assume this at this point, that the uses of this digitalization will go more and more and more, so by knowing about this, how to use it in moderation, not too excessive, not too less, you know and also, not only to the young generation, but also to the, the professionals, as well as like the elderly, where this can be used as a good source, for example, now, like digitalization in agriculture, for example, the government step is taking, where that farmer can actually know about, in advance, hey, how the weather condition is, can I actually put this kind of, what kind of farming should be good based on this weather condition, how that is going to affect that, and any feel for, let's say, I just gave an example of this digitalization in agriculture, because this is kind of things happening in India. So so that's what my goal is. That was my message, is to introduce the this education system, like in the coursework, in early on, in the school as well as at the college level.
I think that was a really amazing piece of advice that we really need, and we hope that this advice reaches to people and to the authorities through this live session. And Siddhant, what would be your take home message?
Well, I'll just make it simple. Social media is not a substitute for your brain. You have to use both if you want to get anywhere.
That's absolutely correct, and I think that that's something that I was expecting from you, and that's really something that I agree. So that was really an amazing session. And yeah, there are many people who have viewed this live streaming right now, and they have put a lot of comments over here. And they are really appreciative of the answers that have been given by both Dr. Santosh, you, and Siddhant. And some of them really appreciated your point of view, Siddhant. So, like, amazing. This was a very insightful thing personally to me, that I got to know a lot about neuroscience particularly. So, though in a very layman sense, but it was really informative. And we are hoping for more live streamings with you. Thank you for joining us today, and we are really indebted to you for your time, and to everyone who joined us today. Thank you very much for joining. Good night.
Thank you, Shreya.
Thank you.